You know, to live the life spiritually, I think that part of what that includes is thinking and being a certain way in the world. And the thinking and the being certainly includes being loving toward yourself and toward other people. You know, to bless them with your thoughts and your prayers and your energy, and also to then try and be a blessing in their lives in some way. It's interesting that so often what motivates people is that they think they're going to get like some kind of approval from God. Like they're going to get spiritual bonus points or something, you know? Or maybe it's approval by other people. But, you know, if there were approval by God, you already have it. See, in the Old Testament, you know, I love Moses in the Old Testament. And Moses is leading the Hebrew people out of Egyptian slavery and bondage toward this promised land. And when Moses goes off to pray up the mountain, God gives him the 10 Commandments. Now, this is a really necessary step in the evolution of consciousness because one, the Hebrew people are chosen because they chose one God. You know, when they were in Egypt, Egypt had lots of gods. But now the Hebrew people choose one God. That's why the Hebrew people are chosen. But, you know, every time Moses would turn his back on them, he's their leader, every time he'd turn his back on them, they'd get wild. They'd just be like Freaky in the desert all the time. You know? And he'd come back and they'd forgotten everything he said and everything he was trying to teach them. So he comes back with the 10 Commandments. And the first commandment of this outer code on how to behave is to love God. You know, to love God before everything else. That means put God first. Put your faith first. Put your faith in God first. Not people, not things, not circumstances out here that's always shifting around. You know, see, I think that we have somehow received a message that if I'm just me is not enough. That I gotta have the whatever to be okay, to be all right. And I'm here to tell you that people in the universe really, really respond to that. If people around you are always trying to fix you or tell you what's not right with you, if you really, really took a look, you would see that you're doing that to yourself, and they're just reflecting that back to you. And so when you heal that belief in you, those people will go away, or when they start that, you will just say, "Excuse me, my mother's calling," and you will leave. Yeah, that's what will happen. See, because when something gets healed in us, there's nothing in us that needs to bring that in anymore. And if it's healed in us, there's nothing in us that feels like I need to stay here and put up with this abuse. Isn't that wonderful? I remember years ago I was dating, and a friend of mine said to me, he said, "So, has the real you showed up?" I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Well, you've been on like 4 or 5 dates now. Has the real you showed up?" And you know how we are. I knew exactly what he was talking about. I was pretending I didn't. You know? Well, what do you mean? The real me. You know, you're being the person you think you need to be, and then eventually, once you've hooked them, then the real you will eventually show up. And the problem with that is people say, "Oh, you've changed. You've changed. You're not the same person I was dating on dates 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the idea is who you really are is absolutely enough. And we want to really get that because that's what the universe responds to. And that's really when that which is our greatest good can come to us. Think about it. God has infinite good in the universe for you, but you're pretending to be somebody else. How can your good come to you if you're pretending to be somebody else? You gotta be you. It's coded that way for that which is really yours by right of consciousness to come into your life, into expression.